I am resident of Colorado. I'm giving my timer dirty looks here. And I'm joined by Christine Pierce and Cara Tilltz. Ladies, how are you?
Oh, great.
Doing good.
Great.
Doing good.
How are you, Jill?
I'm going crazy, but it's okay. They are from Between the Shadows and Dark Shadows podcast, and we're here to discuss the Phoenix arc.
Yeah.
Diana Malay is really the first supernatural villain in Dark Shadows history.
Yes.
She just appears out of nowhere, literally sitting in the diner, just out of nowhere. She just appears.
Yep.
What did you just think of this?
She was a whole new, brand new character that we had never seen before. I mean, Dark Shadows was still pretty new at this time. And we had just gotten over Bill Malloy, that whole Bill Malloy thing. And then all of a sudden there's this woman there. And the way she gazed into that match before she puffed it out, I'm like, what's with this woman,
Like, my first impression, just seeing her walk in, is I had never seen somebody so elegant on the show since, Liz. There was Liz, and then Laura came in. And I was like, whoa, so regal, so pretty.
She's very Gone with the Wind, I feel like.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was an interesting one, and she made me curious from the get-go. I was like, who is this woman? Why does she like fire, and why is she so quiet? And let's get to know her.
Mm-hmm.
So
I literally think, without realizing it, Dark Shadows is going to set every video game trope going forward of having a person appear in front of you, and then when you look, they're not. In every horror movie thing too, from Michael Myers to Jason Voorhees, where there's somebody there, and then when you look, they're not there. They're just gone.
Yes, exactly.
Because this is Laura. Like, when I first saw this as a teenager, I'm thinking, wait, they Maggie and her father are looking at her, and she's just sitting there like she appeared out of nowhere. I'm thinking, did this woman really get off the bus? I didn't see her.
Yeah,
she sits there like she's always been there, and Sam recognizes her, and Maggie's like, I don't know who she is. She just here, but I mean, Sam knows, she was like, I recognize her, and the way that Sam, wanted Maggie just to start asking her questions, find out who she is, because in his mind he's got a theory, but he's not going to tell because Sam is still holding a secret at this time, and just making himself nuts with this secret. And this woman showing up is the way Sam put it, the worst possible thing that could have happened. So that the plot thickens. So but
what did you both think of? Because you're right, they're holding on to. For those who've never watched Dark Shadows,
spoilers.
Sam Evans is holding on to the secret of that it was actually not Burke driving the car, it was Roger driving the car.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's really interesting that there's, again, I love how they're doing that. And here's this missing character we've never seen, only mentioned I think once or twice throughout the series to this point.
Right.
And mentioned once, but I believe it's mentioned once by Liz and very briefly by Roger, and I think even once by Burke. So it may be 3 times because Burke does mention Laura.
Yeah.
But here you have Sam Evans, like you said, recognizing, I know who that is.
Right.
And so I love that Sam is going to invite Roger to the Blue Whale.
Yes.
What did you think of that?
Oh, I got such a kick out of Sam, being the one to tell Roger, roll out the welcome mat, roll out the welcome wagon.
Yeah.
Your wife is home. And I love that Sam got to be the one to do that, because Roger has just been awful to Sam since the show started. And
Sam was paid off to keep his mouth shut, and he just can't wait to give it to him.
Yeah.
He's
It's guess what, Pally?
Guess what? He couldn't wait. He was just waiting for that moment.
Yes.
I loved it.
It gave me such satisfaction that Sam got to be the one to tell Roger. Yeah, buddy.
Sam needed that.
Yes, he needed that desperately.
In wrestling terms, they call this a receipt.
Yes.
I always get my wrestling analogy in, and it makes sense because here's Sam Evans, like he's pointed out, he's been getting that. Roger's been sort of ignoring him and being rude to him. And here's Sam, he's been dodging Burke, and he's ran away from Burke even in his own home. Mm-hmm. And here's his big receipt moment. And it's gold. You sort of wish like that he would have just said, you know what? There's part of me wish he wouldn't have told him right away. And you know what? You don't want to hear fine. And Roger, but when he sits down, he's like, your wife's in town.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, the X is back. That's never good news.
Yeah. I love how he did it. It wasn't just like Roger sat down and said, hey, guess what? He kind of led him along a little bit, and Roger didn't catch the hint, and he's irritated, and he's like, are you going to tell me what you're going to tell me? You're going to pass out drunk first. And Sam's like, I want to be as drunk as possible before I let you have this. And I love that so much. I loved it.
Is there any better patron than Sam Evans for the Blue Whale?
He kept that place in business. He really did, for at least for a while.
I was actually trying to think. I was like, I don't think so.
No, between him and Burke,
Yeah,
it's weird. Here's Burke, who has all this money, right? Who's made it now, and where does he take Victoria winners? The Blue Whale.
Well,
yeah. Dude, really?
I like to think Sam had a very large tab at one point, because he wasn't making any money.
But I guarantee you, Burke's like, hey, yeah, put it on Evans's tab. It's all good.
Yep,
right.
Yes. Yep.
So when he tells Roger's not too pleased, and Elizabeth finds out too. So, and we all know it's, again, here's Roger. He still wants to get rid of David's ass. And I mean, hey, his son did try to kill him. So what did you, that's another thing too, because prior to this arc, we had, David and Roger, even though they were father and son, they weren't exactly BFFs. What did you think of their relationship up until this point?
I mean, very hostile, very
tumultuous.
Yeah, maybe that's the word.
It made me, like, being a parent myself, it made me really sad. I'm like, I mean, I get that people have bad fathers and bad mothers, but to go to the point of a 9-year-old child attempting, not even thinking about it, attempting to kill his father, I'm like, this kid doesn't need a governess. He needs a Thorsine tripper.
He needed a trip to Wincliffe.
Yeah, he needed Dr. Guthrie like a lot sooner than he got him, I think.
Definitely needed some hardcore therapy, but definitely.
He did sort of think about it. I'm sure he thought when he was reading like the mechanic book.
Yeah.
Which part should I make sure that's going to kill my father?
Exactly.
Like, what will make this go out of control?
I mean, for a 9-year-old kid, that was pretty elaborate, because he even found a way in his 9-year-old way to put it on Victoria. Victoria is the one who did it. He planted the bleeder valve, or gave the bleeder valve to her, and then planted the magazine in her dresser or whatever. And I'm like, this boy has way too much time on his hands.
Yeah.
And spending too much time with the ghosts, I think, or I don't know, man.
But obviously well educated.
Oh, yeah,
very smart kid.
Yeah,
very smart kid.
That Victoria Winter, when she teaches a kid how to read, she better watch what they're reading.
I will not take credit for that. That was not me.
That was the substitute y'all hired a while back. I'm pretty sure.
Right.
But yeah, she's shocked, right? She's like, David, how could you?
Yeah.
She in her mouth.
Yeah.
Is Dave? There's a real interesting scene with that David Hennessy, and there's a lot of them. But in the Phoenix arc, he's laying in bed, and it's after Laura leaves the house when she first comes up to the Collinwood, and he says, "Mother, don't go."
Yeah.
So I have a very strange question for you both. Is he hollering for his real mother, or is he hollering for the Phoenix here?
Ooh.
Jewel, I swear you ask the best questions. I'm like, I'm prepared, I'm ready, and then you ask a stumper, and I'm like, dadgum.
I think initially he was just yearning for his mother.
Yeah.
But I think subconsciously there was some kind of knowing in his brain that she was something more.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and they're you know, if you think about Laura the Phoenix instead of Laura the human, the Phoenix could have easily been calling to him, you know, as the Phoenix, and being under that, you know, David, I don't think he cared too much that his mom was technically evil, you know, because it was his mom. Like if this were, I don't know, if this were just like an evil entity, I don't think David would have been as willing to be with his mom.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I like to think it's because he needs a mom, and you know, Vicky's not his mom, and he certainly made that well known and didn't want to be close to her. And so I think Laura the human, not Laura the Phoenix, he was calling to.
Yeah.
But
David, there's a real interesting scene where David is on top of Widow's Hill with Vicky, and him and Laura have arranged this meeting, and he backs away and he nearly goes off the cliff.
Yeah.
He's hanging for dear life. He looks like Stallone in Cliffhanger.
yes.
And so Vicky saves him. Laura and him have a real connection after this. This is sort of the event that causes them to sort of start to talk and get along.
Right.
And it takes this event. Now, this moment here is what causes is like, nah, bitch has got to go. She does not. I think more. Well, first of all, what do you think Liz is thinking?
I mean, she's been through it all, just like I said, Quentin almost, Roger and Bert Devlin.
Well, that's technically true. That's technically
Yeah.
true.
I mean, she got to watch it all happen, not being a spectator the whole time, and seeing from each side how everybody dealt with it, from Laura to Bert to Roger, and then even with David.
Yeah.
She got to see it all, and from an outsider's perspective, she had the best one.
I agree.
And I think she did everything. Everything was for David's protection.
Yeah. I mean, and she even told Roger at, you know, after the, you know, trying to kill him part, you know, he was like, Roger's like, I'm ready to get rid of him. Whatever, you know, and Liz is like, you know, you say this adds up to 9 years, and I'm telling you, you haven't seen him, you know, laying in bed crying at night because you've poured so much hate into him and losing his mom. And so I think Liz's ultimate goal was to, I think at this point, you know, I think Elizabeth knows that Roger's probably guilty of the manslaughter. I think she knows in her heart. And because of that, I think she feels like Roger's kind of past saving, like he's too far to be saved. But David isn't. David is still young. David's still impressionable. And he's the last Collins until he has more. Yeah. So I think, because Liz was always the keeper of the family honor too. Yeah. She's like, I'll be damned. So I think if you don't. Yeah. So I think I think from some ways she was like grooming him because he was the one to inherit everything, because Carolyn was going to go off and get married and not really be a Collins anymore. He was the carry on of the name. He was the legacy. So I think that was part of Liz's thinking with this whole Laura and Roger and Burke and whatever deal. But I also think that Liz genuinely loved David like she loved Carolyn. And like she loves her brother, but again, he's at this point kind of past saving. So she was like, you know what? You do what you want to do. You let me handle David. You let Vicky handle David. And she even said that to him, you know. You know, Liz was also in a position that she really didn't have another opportunity to have any more kids. Yeah, yeah. And David was the son she never had. Yeah. And she's like, again, I'll be damned if he goes the way of his father. Yeah. It's like, and she did it. Like, to a point, she was like the typical caring aunt, you know, like if your sibling's messing up your child, you know, you're like, okay, no, I'm not gonna let you mess up this child, you know. But she was his mother. That's a very long-winded answer, but that's what I think. But it's a long subject. Yes.
If there's ever a title for the David Collins arc, it's A Fight for the Boy's Soul. And really,
Yeah.
You have many people fighting for his soul. You have Elizabeth, Victoria, Bill Malloy, the ghost of Josette. In that, not necessarily in that specific order.
Yeah.
But from his aunt his aunt Elizabeth, really her goal is to fight his father tooth and like yes, Victoria is her daughter, but in many ways she's bringing Victoria in to make sure Roger is not getting David out of this house.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's basically his goal is, hey, I want my son out of here and out of my hair so I don't have to really watch him or raise him.
Yes.
I mean, he's a father who's not wanting the responsibility of a father. And that's the biggest crime of all.
Absolutely.
And you know what? He had that. He didn't have to take care of David. Elizabeth did. Like,
yeah.
He did. And that's what I think she was trying to tell Roger all these years. It's like, you're not here doing this. You're not here doing that. You are for me. That's why he's with me.
Right.
And I say so. So.
And it's my house.
So, yeah.
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 I think Liz provided the perfect out for Roger.
Yeah.
Like completely provided the perfect out. But but Roger, I think it's the sibling rivalry thing. He didn't want Liz to be better than him. He would have rather David have gone off with his mother, than Elizabeth having him. Even though David would have had an excellent life if Liz had become his legal guardian.
Yeah.
But Roger couldn't let Elizabeth win because
I think there was still that slight thing in Roger too, kind of like with Quentin and his siblings, the animosity of Liz being
the matriarch.
Yeah. I think there was still just that slight resentment between the two of them. And that's why Roger was such a wild dude.
Yes.
The big thing too is long before his death, the bleeder valve incident really is a key reason of why Bill Malloy ends up dying.
Yeah.
Because when Constable Jonas Carter, for those who've never seen Dark Shadows, it wasn't always Sheriff George Patterson. There was a constable at one point.
Right.
And he tells Bill Malloy it was David who did the deed.
Yeah.
And this here is what causes Bill Malloy to make the deal with Bert Devlin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really, again, it ultimately causes Bill's death. And then later on, we get the ghost of Josette who comes out of the portrait to help the widow's murder.
Matthew.
I'm sorry. Anytime I'm thinking, God, these ghosts are some vengeful sons of bitches.
Yeah. Well, they're women. That's how we get. I can admit it. We can help you.
I think you are both talking to my wife secretly. Like we're all vengeful. We're gonna kill some people. No. But I think
girl, you ready?
Right. It's like the fact that she does this and then she makes every effort to protect David from the Phoenix by employing Vicky.
Yeah.
And I really love Nancy Barrett as taking over as the matriarch here. What did you think of that?
I think we talked about it on one of our episodes, but the progression of Carolyn's maturity.
Yeah.
Like from the start, like the petty little Carolyn that wanted Burke so bad, to just all of a sudden just changing her tone. And I think it was like when Liz was getting mentally sick.
When Laura came after her.
Yeah.
She squared up with Laura and then,
Yeah. But all of a sudden Carolyn just 180'd it. And she even started dressing differently.
Yeah.
Like, I loved it.
Yeah.
It's what I wanted from her after so many episodes of her being a wild child.
Oh, yeah.
And petty and all that. I loved it to see that from her.
I think Carolyn was going the way of her uncle real fast. Yeah. I really do. And then her mom got sick and Garner said, well, Liz said that in her absence, her daughter's in charge. I think Liz knew better. I think she saw the potential in Carolyn that, Carolyn's my child, not Roger's. So there's some hope for her.
Right.
But
I mean, you got to forget, she was only 17, 18,
18
when we met her. So,
And the complete turnaround, like she took charge and did it well. And even when Roger came after her and said, you're not fit to do this, she's like, Roger, don't make me put you in your place. I really don't want to, but I will. Yeah. And I mean, she has started sounding more and more like Elizabeth. And I did love that for her because I feel like that was the point in the show where we got a really positive character development. in Carolyn.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But
I agree.
I think it's really cool to you sort of you. It's easy to call Rogers bluff that he's going to involve the lawyers because the lawyers more have Carolyn's back.
right.
And hey, we're here to grant you a divorce, Roger, but grant you custody of the house. Nah, dude.
No.
You better watch it. Don't push it.
What's your second request?
yeah. The first request, nah. But pretty much anything, but having control of this house or decisions about this house or David, nah, dude. You can have anything other than that. Ice water, sure, we'll get it for you.
Yeah.
But I really like the fact that, again, Dark Shadows always found a way to involve law or even outside of it, whether it be police, lawyers, courtrooms, which was really cool.
Yeah.
I love the fact that the younger Gardner, who had a crush, Frank Gardner, who had a crush on Victoria and was dating her, actually gets involved in this story pretty heavily. What did you think of him?
Chip off the old block with his dad, but did it in such I hate to say a modernized way, like not such an old. He just had a different outlook looking into it. He was like, he wasn't so much about covering up the Collins' secrets. Yeah. And I don't think it was just for Carolyn's sake. I think it's just because it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Like, as their lawyers and as her friend and boyfriend at the moment, like, I commend him for doing the right thing.
Yeah. I mean, Frank was a chip old, an old chip off the block or whatever.
Chip off the old block.
Thank you. I can't put two sentences together today, I swear. But, these damn kids. But but I know that Richard kind of had those feelings for Liz, and Richard knew that Vicky was Liz's daughter.
Yep.
And as soon as Vicky came down asking questions, he's on the phone with Liz. Hey, she's here. She's asking questions. What should I do?
Yeah.
And I don't think Frank knew. I don't think Frank knew, but he felt sorry for her, and I think that's kind of where it started off. He's like, I'll help you. And then he fell in love with her, and I thought that was kind of cute. It was like the first love that we saw for Vicky. I mean, Burke was trying, but we couldn't tell if Burke was just trying to get close to her because he was trying to destroy the Collinses, or if he actually had feelings for her.
I think it was both. That was the beginning, and then it turned into after all the stuff was smushed.
But Frank, I mean, Vicky has pretty much been alone her entire life. Like she's had nobody growing up except for her boss. Like her boss is the closest thing to family she's ever had. And then Frank comes along and shows her genuine attraction, genuine fondness, affection. Yeah. And so I kind of like I liked seeing that for Vicky, seeing just a little bit of happy creep into her life,
something that was her own.
And I kind of would have, I mean, I love Burke and Vicky. I think I liked that match, but
Burke's the man.
He's, but I liked seeing that for Vicky. I liked seeing that little glimmer of happy in her life because she was so lost and looking for answers and coming up with nothing, Yeah. So it was kind of nice to see that for her.
Yeah.
Have a little bit of happy. So
I really like the fact that when you have a really good interaction between father and son, between Richard and his son, where he's telling his son, remember, Elizabeth is our client, not Victoria.
Yeah.
And that's one of where you're getting this sense like, shit.
He's like, what do you do that I don't, Dad?
Right.
You're sort of wondering, as much as you like seeing the elder attorney, and like he is for Liz, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he shouldn't be in a sense. But in a lot of ways, he's going to the point of, well, what would he do for Elizabeth? Who would he kill? Would he have somebody killed? Would Elizabeth, how far would they take this?
Exactly.
And you're sort of wondering that. But when his son sort of starts dating Vicky and trying to find out things for her, he tells us that, hey, that's our client, not her. And I love what Richard tells Vicky. My son's all over the place. He's scattered.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, did he just like throw his son under the bus here?
Right.
Yeah.
But it's really cool that it's the son who introduces Dr. Peter Guthrie,
Yes.
our parapsychologist. So what did you think of that?
Dr. Guthrie.
I know you wanted to talk about Guthrie.
Okay, Dr. Guthrie was, until Professor Stokes came on board, Dr. Guthrie was my favorite. I loved how smart he was, how quick he was, how he was like Julia Hoffman before Julia Hoffman came on the scene. Like, he knew how to ask all the right questions. And like when he went to Sam Evans to ask about the painting, he didn't just come right out and say, I want to know, why did you paint this? He came, somebody told me you're an artist and I'm interested. And he probed Sam and kind of manipulated him in a way to where Sam trusted him. And he was like, I know that you didn't paint this, and I want you to know that I believe you. And Sam just completely 180 and was like, what did you say? And so I don't know. And I think I would have liked to have seen Dr. Guthrie take on Barnabas Collins. I would have loved to have seen how he would have dealt with Barnabas, but Laura got him first. So, but
imagine if it was Guthrie instead of like Lang or something.
Yes. I think Peter Guthrie would have been. I don't think he would have wanted to vanquish the vampire because it was so like Julia.
Yeah.
I think he would have been so fascinated that he would have tried to find a way to help him instead of
to cure it.
Yeah, instead of taking him out.
Yeah.
But Peter Guthrie was the man.
Yeah.
The one thing I love about Guthrie most is he doesn't come in at pointing fingers. He's very neutral about the matter. It's always nice to see a character not pick a side right away.
Yes.
Yeah, he's here to help Elizabeth. Yeah, sure, he's here to investigate matters, but investigations take time.
Yeah.
It's not just simple pointing the finger. This isn't the Shadow. Dr. Guthrie does not know yet. Where the Shadow always knows. But here's Guthrie. He's investigating. He's talking to Carolyn. He's talking to Vicky. He's talking to David. Roger's being a dick with him, which I love.
Tells him to go to hell more than once, man.
What did you think of Roger here? Just like he's ready to. I swear I was expecting Lewis Edmonds' character Roger to throw down with Guthrie.
I know. I was surprised we didn't get a physical altercation with them.
It's especially after Burke is found at Laura's cottage and Roger goes after him with a gun.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it didn't end like that with Guthrie.
Because, that was Roger's answer to everything: is grab his gun and go.
He's like, I'll kill you if it's the last thing I do. But But it wasn't until Guthrie was like that first seance they had. It wasn't until Guthrie was like, if we're not successful, then I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if this doesn't work, then I can't do anything else here. Mm-hmm. And Roger's like, oh, great. Well, let's do it then, But I don't know. Roger made himself more and more guilty as time went on. Like with the Bill Malloy thing, I was sure it was Roger. And I'm sure that's what the writers wanted you to think at first.
I mean, he was so defensive every single time with every single person. He just made himself obvious.
Yeah. But, and I mean, I guess if you read Shadows on the Wall, we're not supposed to have Roger that long. And I think that's why he was so belligerent and so, insufferable with.
Kind of like they were trying to make you happy that he was gone.
Right. Because
but it didn't go that way.
Like the way in Shadows on the Wall it went, he and Vicky are on Widow's Hill and he's sure that Burke has brought her on and she's in cahoots with Burke to, take him down, and then he takes a dive off of Widow's Hill and then no more Roger, which I'm glad didn't happen because Roger really
turned it around.
Yeah. But that was totally off topic, but that's how I feel.
No, I like it.
That's what happens.
I know.
You never have to stick on topic on this.
I've been dying to talk some Dark Shadows. It's been a long time. Too friggin' long.
What's really interesting too is you can tell with the beginning episodes that Roger is supposed to be a lot more heelish than even what he is being. From where he grabs Vicky on Widow's Hill and says, "Who'd you meet? Burke? Like that right there is sort of your telltale sign." And then really if that wasn't looked back even earlier, when Elizabeth's, waiting on Vicky to arrive and he's arguing with his own sister Elizabeth on the fact that that's happening.
Yes.
It's like, this isn't just another argument. This is something more.
Right.
And so you do get the sense right away that Roger is supposed to be this heavier heel.
Yeah.
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 Well, some heavier heels were going to show up. You had obviously the Phoenix. What did you think of? We have Laura in Phoenix, Arizona, pun intended, and her body is burnt up. What did you think of that?
That was one of those things where, like, I'm one of those people who ruins movies for myself because you're trying to figure out the ending, you know, and but with this one, I'm like, what? I'm like, so there's a body in Phoenix, burnt beyond recognition, but they're certain it's Laura Collins, but here's Laura Collins standing in front of us. What is happening? You know, that was one that I couldn't figure out the first time I watched it, and like waiting and waiting and waiting for them to explain this to me because it's driving me crazy.
Yeah.
But
I mean, the whole aspect of the Phoenix, you know, burning to ashes and then rising back from the ashes. I was like, why was there a body left in Phoenix?
yeah.
I guess that's what confused me with the whole Phoenix aspect, because it's supposed to just turn all to ash.
It's like they
and then
just
rise from the ashes. But why was there a body left?
Well, burnt beyond recognition. So because there was no signs of forced entry, it didn't look like anybody had started the fire. So they just naturally assumed that it was Laura. So, I mean, the ashes were left. So, I mean, they can, here I'm getting technical, they can run DNA and do stuff, you know. But,
Dexter.
Yeah. But I mean, even when they explained it the first time, I'm not sure I understood. But, you know, doing all the digging, doing all the research and reading all the, you know, everything that anybody has on Dark Shadows, it's like, okay, I think I have a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
But that blew my mind. The first time I watched it, I'm like, what?
Yeah, I had to rewatch it a few times to grasp everything they were telling you.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
It was hard to swallow there for a minute.
Yeah.
I sort of wonder, here's Laura. She hasn't seen David, the real Laura.
Yeah.
And here's this entity that appears at. I sort of think about the burning bush and Moses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But instead of where God did not burn Moses alive, the Phoenix burns Laura. Like, I can give you your son, and I'll take him to a very special place.
Yeah.
And she's like, you know what? I'll do it, not knowing what the consequences are.
Yeah.
And the Phoenix is able to take her body by burning her and absorbing her. I do think, to me, there's a bit of a hint to this when they're at the morgue, like, okay, and they're at the house, and you hear them talking to Laura, and Laura has all the memories of the Laura and Phoenix. Well, how is that possible? Well, it's because she absorbed all that when burning the real Laura alive.
Okay. See, now that's the clearest explanation I've heard ever.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
I'm not always this clear either.
I went from 70% understanding to 90 in about a minute that you explained that. So.
For real.
See?
You just got to break it down a little.
Yeah. I'm not always so quick.
Think about it too. This is after Dark Shadows comes after the movie The Thing.
Okay? Yeah.
John Carpenter, when he remakes The Thing, he reads the book, and he more copies the book than the original movie did.
Right.
Of absorbing of a creature who's trying to take your shape and your identity and look like us, sound like us, be us, and take over the world that way.
Yeah.
And here's the Phoenix in a roundabout way is sort of being Thing-ish, where she's making a deal with this woman who wants to see her kid again. Well, I can make that happen, and I can even take him to a better place than what they have.
Yeah.
Deal.
Yeah.
It's worse than making the deal with the devil here.
Right.
Yeah.
And it feels like there's still like pieces of Laura left in that Phoenix, though. I mean, because at the very tail end, I know we're not there yet, but at the very tail end, you know, she's begging David to come in those flames. I don't want to go without you. Don't make me go 100 years without you. And that one got me right in the feels. But so I think that there are traces of Laura left in
absolutely,
the Phoenix absorbed her. So I mean, she's there somewhere, you know. So
no, I agree, because when you watch that scene, it feels like there's as much of a mother coming out in that episode as there is any.
Yes.
And it's like, so she's not all evil, just wants to burn her kid alive. It's like
loving way possible.
It's like I feel for you, but then I don't.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not that bad.
The motives are purely selfish, but as a parent, we kind of get it, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
You know who I love, by the way, during this arc, we get the Maggie Evans, Joe Haskell relationship starting. What did you think of that?
Oh, yeah.
Such a better fit. It really was. Like, I felt like Joe and Carolyn were so forced, and Carolyn wanted nothing to do with it, you know, and it was just Mama's choice for her, you know. But then Maggie is genuinely attracted to Joe, and they have way more in common.
I mean, but before that, they were just genuine friends.
Yeah, they're just
pals. They could actually carry on a conversation and
talk about fishing and boats.
Yeah.
And Joe's like, "What do you know about fishing?" And Maggie starts rattling off all this stuff.
Maggie's not a spoiled little rich girl.
No,
like she's a down home like working girl. Like
not actual working girl. She just works very hard.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, I know. but her and Carolyn are so polar opposites.
Yeah.
And it was just not for Joe with Carolyn. It just it would have never worked. Like they're two different.
Joe and Maggie were like a breath of fresh air. Yeah. They were like one relationship in this whole series is gonna work, you know. Yeah. It's great.
And it still didn't.
And it still didn't.
Can you believe
Eventually
that?
It still didn't.
I mean, I guess in the very, very end with the whatever epilogue or whatever they took at the end. Anyways, we're not there. But
well, with Joe, poor Joe, the way he gets wrote off is he gets sent to Wycliffe. Now they don't kill him off. That's a plus. But you're taking a character who's been around since the beginning, pretty much, and you're sending his ass to Wycliffe.
He deserved better. He deserved a little bit better.
It better. I think maybe I'd rather him be killed off than be put in the nut house. Poor Joe.
But I kind of, not to hate on Joe because he's great, but I kind of feel like his knight in shining armor attitude kind of got the best of him.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. He was a meathead.
Yeah, I mean, he meant well. He meant very well. It's just he was too knight in shining armor for his own good at times. And I think it got him.
Joe, I think, was really good to Sam, though, especially when Maggie got kidnapped. You know, he didn't.
Oh yeah.
You know, he was so good to Sam, even to the tail end. And just, I don't know.
We're picking Sam up drunk from the bar, taking care of him.
Yeah.
But you made a great point, Cara, where you said about it gets the better of him because in this arc. That happens when Dr. Guffrey, hey, is there somebody that knows this area really well? Yes.
Haskell.
We know somebody. Carolyn knows somebody. His name is Joe Haskell. Good old Joe. He'll help dig up a body. What?
Yeah.
What are we waiting for? Yeah. Good old Joe.
Oh, Joe.
I love Joel Carruthers in the episode where he's like, "You want me to what?"
But he gets real invested after that initial no. But then he gets really invested and, you know, finds the newspaper article, digs up the grave, digs up several graves, and golly jeepers.
Man.
Do you think this was sort of a foreshadowing of things to come with Willie and Barnabas and the whole grave digging thing we're going to see later on?
I think it was a gentle push in that direction, you know, because it did kind of foreshadow what was coming with Willie on this heist to get the family jewels, and then gets way more than he bargained for.
Well, and then grave digging. The ultimate was Dr. Lang.
Yeah.
The ultimate.
Absolutely.
Grave digging.
Even though Dr. Lang never dug one of them graves himself, he always made I'm sorry, Jeff Clark do it.
Peter Jeff.
Jeff Bradford.
Have you ever seen the movie Chinatown with Jack Nicholson?
Yeah.
Where he's smacking that girl. My sister, my daughter.
Yeah.
Like that's what that feels like. Peter, Jeff, Peter.
Daniel, David, Jameson.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my god. Yeah, but I love what Carolyn does here too. She goes, "It's not for me, it's for my mom." And how do you say no to something that concerns Joan Bennett? You don't.
Right?
You don't.
How do you?
Protect the queen. For real.
Literally, that's what that feels like too. And it's just
God save the queen.
I'm like, Joe, dude, just run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
No.
he does it though. So I love Joe I'll say it, the grave robber.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of many titles.
I mean, because long before Lieutenant Nathan Forbes, we sort of do get a sense of Joe Haskell can be a bit of a heel.
Yes.
When he tells off Elizabeth when he's drunk. And sort of bit of this, because grave robbing is a pretty...
That's pretty.
Well, he found his balls when he told Liz off. So, I mean, let's do it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can tell the matriarch of Collinwood off, I mean, there's nothing you can't
There's
do.
nobody else in Collinsburg you need to tell off. So.
I always kept waiting for Joe to be the one to take over be the new cannery manager of it all.
Totally.
Yeah.
You know.
He was headed there. I mean, you know, and
Bill Malloy was his boss.
Yeah.
And, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But what did you... Here's Dana Malay. She has a really great interaction with the ghost of Josette. So before we meet Barnabas, who knew Josette, we know here in this arc, Laura knew Josette when she was alive, when Josette's in the Matthew Morgan's old cottage, and Laura is holding David. We see Josette reach out, and she's like, "He's mine, Josette. He's mine."
Yep.
So what did you think of this? Was this creepy or what?
It's so funny because when we learn that they knew each other, you know, we learn that obviously when their first meeting, we get the sense that there's some beef between these girls. And at first I'm like, oh, but they were both wives of Jeremiah Collins. Is that the beef? You know, is it the age-old beef?
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, I think Laura's beef and Josette's beef with Laura and vice versa was that they were two completely separate entities, butting heads. Neither one had control over the other.
Yeah.
And they were both fighting for David. That was the beef.
Yeah.
But I'm sure being Jeremiah's wives didn't help either.
I mean, but it totally puts everything in perspective as to why is Josette protecting David?
Right.
Why Josette?
Right.
But this totally puts it all in perspective. And it blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, they knew each other?
Right. And
Crazy.
which sort of answers the question that never got answered on the show during this saga.
Yeah.
Because Roger was like, the happiest day of my life it will be when Laura leaves and takes David with her, takes my son with her, if David is my son. Like, he was convinced that he was Burke's. But Josette watching David, protecting David, now that tells me that boy's a Collins. Yeah. He's Roger's kid.
Yeah.
And then later on when Quentin wanted him, that boy's a Collins.
Yeah.
He's not a Devlin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I sort of think with Burke, like he loved to make it out with the women. He kisses Laura, he kisses Victoria. I'm pretty sure he kisses Carolyn at some point. It's
he
like,
does.
My God, dude! Like, can you stop making out with these fine women? Like,
if this were today, if this were 2023, we'd be able to say keep it in your pants. But since it's 1966, we're a little more formal than that.
Like, this is the definition of a man whore.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
It is. Yeah,
exactly.
That was Quentin.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Quentin Manberg. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So I was thinking Quentin. Sorry.
No, but yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Well, I love that with Amber. The character of Amber is she's basically a weird female take on Harry Vincent. That because she jumps off the bridge in New York. I assume it's the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah.
And Harry Vincent was standing on the Brooklyn Bridge. He jumps, but a mysterious figure called the Shadow grabs him and pulls him back up. Doesn't allow him to hit the floor of the ground, the water below, and kill him. And he says to him, You can either work for me or you can go back to what you were doing.
Yeah.
No choice. Unfortunately, Amanda doesn't get that option. She gets it afterwards.
Yeah. It's your best.
You know. So Laura knew Josette. Josette knew Laura, and this is. I keep telling a friend of mine. I said, "Listen, you're going to learn real fast. Who's still going through the series? He's actually in 1795."
Oh yeah, buddy.
And he actually made it there. He was talking to me today. Shout out to Daniel Culver, Killenberg. But I said to him, I said, listen, you're gonna learn real fast. Jeremiah did not want to get married to anybody. I said that man had been through a marriage once.
Yeah.
He was, Joshua was so gung ho about having him marry Millicent. He's like, no, I don't want to.
Yeah. He had already been brought through the fire, no pun intended. No, but for real.
It took a spell to get him to get married again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody asked me what was my favorite part of 1795. Was it Barnabas's vampire turn? I said no. I knew that was coming. I said, listen, my favorite part ever of 1795 is literally Joshua. Here's his son. He sees that the marriage to Josette is pretty much in the back. Hey, that's going to happen for sure.
Yeah.
Then he's turning around and trying to get his own brother married to his cousin. I'm thinking, this dude is like the ultimate matchmaker.
Yeah, totally. And it's like, you are not one to give out relationship advice. Your wife and y'all do not get along.
She drinks because of you.
It's like your wife is a lush because of you, and we all know your problems. So.
Your wife is drinking so she doesn't murder you in your sleep.
That's exactly it.
God,
oh my gosh.
So, Lord, this is officially the first ever seance, I believe, in Dark Shadows history. The Phoenix Arc. So you have this moment. Here's the first seance to channel the spirit of Josette Dupre Collins. Sorry. What did you think of this?
Oh man. I mean, I was actually a little freaked out when I first watched it. Like seances are freaky. Like they're freaky. They're very fascinating. Yeah. But I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, they're really gonna do a seance on daytime TV? Yeah. Are they really gonna do this?
that was pretty edgy for 66. Yeah. Like to do on a family network in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
And
they took it there for sure.
But for us, who, are watching it 55 years later or whatever it is, 50, however long it's been. I can't do math, but
don't ask me to math right now.
It's at the end of the day. I'm not trying to do math, but for those of us, even those of us who are watching it today, and those of us who get invested the way that we do, it's like knowing what we know by the end of the show, and then going back and watch it is like if you people only knew that this was the start of so many other seances. And that was where they turned when they had no answers. Yep. Let's do a seance. Yep. We can't figure out what's wrong with Liz. We can't figure out who Laura is and what her power is and what her holdover, is. And let's have a seance because Josette knows. So let's, and then later on down the road when they're trying to help David with Sarah and whatnot, let's contact Sarah. Let's have a seance. Like the Collinses are, when they're out of answers, their answer is a seance, and they always have results. Like I've never seen so many positive results in a seance than we do on Dark Shadows. It's like, how do you people always have results?
Well, it's like notice when they every seance, like there's somebody new in the circle that is more knowledgeable. Like there was Julia. Then,
the first one was Guthrie.
Yeah, and then Julia, and then Timothy Stokes.
Yeah.
It was like you got more educated, and I think that's why they got results because
I mean, so much so that even the kids had one because I've seen the adults do that a million times.
Oh my gosh, that was insane.
But that first one, like watching Laura, it didn't matter that it was black and white. You could just tell through Laura's eyes, those big baby blues just staring a hole through Vicky while she's just uttering in French when Vicky doesn't speak French. Well, she's speaking French now, you know, and
Yeah.
and I loved at the end, and Roger was like, Laura, you speak French. What did she say? You know, it's like totally giving her away. So you know that Laura knew every word she said.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, I don't know. It was so disjointed. I think it was just muttering. And Peter Guthrie is like, well, I speak French. I know what she said. And it's like, yes. Boom, boom, boom. Oh my God. That was another awesome Peter Guthrie moment. And oh man.
Yeah.
But yeah, that first seance is like got the ball rolling, and it just kept snowballing.
You're like, wow, that's how it's done.
That's how it's done. Yeah.
It's one of the most, I love when Dark Shadows turned off the lights, because it's one of the most coolest lighting moments ever, because it went from with black and white, things already look sort of dark.
Right.
But when you turn out the lights, it looks even darker, and the very little lighting they use is just for effect. And it's so cool when you see the close-ups of the facials, and it's like, oh wow, this is creepy as hell.
Yeah, it was like Vicky's voice didn't even sound like her own.
No,
like
it didn't.
It sounded, and this happened again when they went to when she went to 1795, when she was speaking, like Sarah was speaking through her. It sounded to me, it sounded like a 9-year-old girl, you know, talking, and it was.
Props to Alexandra.
Yeah, well done by Alexandra Mulkey. So
if you want to hear a similar effect where a woman can sound like a child, go watch the original Friday the 13th.
Yes.
Betsy Palmer.
Oh my gosh. She is.
Help me. Help me.
Oh my God.
I just watched that a few nights ago. I was like, oh my God.
These actresses are just gold, and I mean, the writing was gold, and the actresses were gold. The fact you have Alexandra doing French and doing a kid's voice at another seance. What was your favorite seance in Dark Shadows?
Oh my gosh.
What a loaded question.
Whoa. I know, my mind's just racing right now.
Okay, now my first impression is to say the one that sent Vicky back, because I love time travel. This has been well established. So my first impression would be to say that. But the other one that I enjoyed thoroughly is the one shortly after that, when they come back and they're trying to reach Trask, and they've got Tony Peterson sitting at the table.
Oh yes.
And they and Trask uses Tony to speak through, and all of a sudden there's Reverend Trask again speaking through Tony, and I'm like, that one was pretty ultimate.
That was amazing.
But
the way him too, he just 180'd it, and you heard Trask, and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
I mean, I know they're the same characters, but the fact that he could switch just like that was incredible.
Yeah, that one, I agree with you. That's probably the one for me. That was
Jerry
awesome.
Lacey, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of the actors and actresses are criminally underrated.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my God.
I agree.
Some of the finest acting, and I'm not saying that to say that.
No, some of the finest acting
it's so good.
They did not get enough credit and didn't get enough work afterwards. I'm like, are you not watching Dark Shadows? You know, I mean,
like all those girls, like Angelique, Maggie, Carolyn, they were all like just beginning. This was like their first job off of stage or whatever, you know, like amazing.
Now you will see Dark Shadows members on other television shows. Laura Parker was in Night Stalker.
Yeah.
She also played the Bruce Banner's wife in the Incredible Hulk series.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
And she was in the pilot episode of the original Kung Fu that starred David Carradine.
Oh yeah.
Where she was playing the farmer who needed help, who needed a worker, and David Carradine, who is volunteering. He left the temple and he's volunteering for work for Laura Parker. I do feel from a Hollywood standpoint, they missed the boat big here.
Yeah.
There's so much talent on this show, it's ridiculous.
I agree.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, David Selby was in movies, but they should have all been stars in
I
every
agree.
Yeah.
I absolutely
Yeah.
agree. And it's like you said, severely underrated for as well as they did.
I know that's why we keep Dark Shadows alive.
That's why we do
honestly,
this.
because they were shining stars, man.
There's a movie I watched. There was a movie I watched years ago, right after I watched Dark Shadows. It's called Prophecy. It has Christopher Walken in it. I kept picturing Jonathan Frid as Gabriel.
Yeah.
Like Frid would have killed this role.
Completely.
But is there a place that they didn't conduct a seance that Yins would like to see a seance conducted at?
You know, the one time, and I might be wrong, you know, my knowledge of Dark Shadows might be wrong here, but there was one saga where we didn't see a seance. It was during the Leviathan era.
Yeah, there was enough going on with that.
I know. But
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out but I feel like there could have been one, because remember how terrified Jeb Hawks was of Peter Bradford.
Yeah.
Why? You know, I mean, we got a little bit of that, but I would have liked to have seen them when they're trying to figure out how to defeat Jeb, and then they turn him babyface, so it ends up being okay. But before all of that, you know, they could have held a seance to get a hold of Peter Bradford and figure out, what did you do to this guy that he's so terrified of you? You know, how do we defeat him?
Wow.
So, I don't know.
That was a good opportunity for them to do that.
So,
My favorite seance is the one they held in Rose Cottage, because it's the first time we get to actually literally see Gerard Stiles perform a seance.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And the head of Judah Zachary is in the closet.
Yeah, totally.
It's like, just open the door. I was like, open the closet door.
Oh,
And they don't. Hey, I love Reverend Trust. There's evil in this room. Like, yeah, you would know, wouldn't you?
Yeah. You don't say.
Oh my god.
Like, the irony of that line from that man is beautiful. Jerry Lacey, it's a beautiful job, because he's playing another character. He's playing another Trask sitting there.
The devil's in you.
Lamar Trask. And the place I would have loved to see one conducted, we never got a seance inside the Blue Whale.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Think about the Eagle and all those prostitutes that Barnabas killed on the dock.
Could you imagine?
Can you imagine the ghost that would pop up in the Blue Whale / the Eagle? Can you imagine?
Barnabas would have been so SOL at that point. Oh my god.
My gosh.
Ruby Tate and Maud Browning and
you name him, he killed him.
Hey, Bart, what are you doing against the hose?
I was telling my friend, I said, Willie brings Barnabas a lot of prostitutes when he's not doing anything cattle. And he's like, what? Like,
he didn't have him digging graves, but he had him going out looking for the women.
Obviously, Barnabas knew what he liked. He liked the hose.
He had a taste.
Yes, he did. But you have Diana Malay and playing the first supernatural character villain. What did you think of her compared to, let's say, Barnabas?
Oh man.
Now I'm gonna get on a little bit of a girl power kick here. I promise. I'm not like
Right.
you know, equality or anything, but I mean whatever. I'm gonna dig a hole and I'll go on.
Continue.
But the fact that they brought on a woman as the first supernatural, the way that, and it's not the fact that it was a woman and nothing else, but Diana Malay like slayed this role, like slayed it. And like when we were watching her interview, when Bob Costello hired her, you know, she was telling us the story of how she was months pregnant and, you know, going into his office, and she was like, I don't want to audition. And he was like, okay, well, just here's the soliloquy, read the soliloquy. And she's reading it. She's like, can I say this? Can I read this to you? And as soon as she read it, she got the part. And it's obvious why, you know, I mean, she got so deep into that role. You know, and she even told Bob Costello, she's like, well, that's great because I am the Phoenix, you know, like that. And but she's so right, you know.
And they, you know, how they introduced you, like they set up such a pretty face on it.
They did.
Such an elegant, pretty
Yeah.
presentation of what's to come. Like this ugly, not, I mean, in a sense, this ugly
entity.
Yes.
Yeah.
That could potentially be deadly.
I think it was very very tactful the way that they did it.
Yeah.
Because they didn't just bring on a vampire as the first villain. It was like, yeah, okay. But they brought on something that even the writers had never heard of before. Even Dan Curtis had never heard of before until the writers were like, what about a phoenix? And he was like, what's a phoenix? Yeah. And, they were, so someone said like a villain that's so lesser known.
Yeah.
I thought that was an excellent choice, to go into, this legendary bird who, rises from the ashes every 100 years. I thought, and the way Diana Malay portrayed it was, mwah, I love it. It was great.
Chef's kiss.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was great.
She does a really great job of selling the character.
She does.
And from the camera work to her dialogue, she sets up something that I think a lot of people don't give her credit for, and that's this. It's not about how you look. It's about who you are without anybody realizing it. Yeah. And there's this untold danger no matter who the person is.
Yeah. Right.
Don't just trust somebody because they're a pretty face or they talk nice to you, because here's this person who will deceive you to get what they want. And it's something Dark Shadows is going to repeat, and brilliantly, with Barnabas, with
absolutely
with Patofe as Finn Gibbons.
Finn Gibbons. Yeah,
I love how they utilized every single thing they could. Like like Dan Curtis said, he was in the end. There was nothing left for us to do. We did it all.
Yeah.
And I respect that. Because they did.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't think they left anything out.
And Diana Malay was the perfect combination of absolutely charming, but absolutely sinister. And I loved that about her.
Terrifying.
Like
she was,
this beautiful face, but terrifying. And
she's got that look, that mother look that'll burn a hole through you. Yeah. No pun intended. But for real.
It's true. I didn't even think about that, but yeah. She played the mom and the Phoenix simultaneously so friggin' well. And I'm like, I cannot imagine anyone else playing this Phoenix but her. And if they bring her back, they're going to have to do a hell of a job. They're going to have to be a hell of a person to do it.
They should, if they're smart.
Those shoes are Shaq size. I'm serious.
I mean, like you said, that's what started it all off, really. Even before.
Yeah.
What did you think about, because we had not seen really Elizabeth touched until the Phoenix.
Yeah.
So what did you think of that? How bold was that?
For Elizabeth to stand up the way she did, that was pretty friggin' ballsy.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty ballsy, because, she could have been like, okay, that's his mom, I'm going to back off. No, she didn't. She stood her ground and was like, look, you need to leave.
Yeah.
She's like, this is doing more harm than good. I don't care that you're his mother. This is my house. I've been taking care of David all this time while you've been in the nut house, and, downplayed her alcoholism, is what I read in Shadows on the Wall. She was originally supposed to be the soap opera ex-wife that was in the nut house because she was an alcoholic, but I love that instead they turned her into a Phoenix instead of just the alcoholic ex-wife.
Yeah.
And for Elizabeth to be the one to stand up to our very first supernatural entity, I had high respect for Elizabeth for that.
Talk about that girl power.
Yeah, girl power. Go ahead, girl.
One of my favorite scenes is when they're waving their hands in front of Joan Bennett. She doesn't even blink. Oh, that's training.
God.
She doesn't move her eyes. She doesn't blink. I'm thinking, damn, that's good.
Yeah. I'm like, like they didn't have, shoot, now I lost my train of thought. You know how like in some shows they have like, if it's a really intense scene or like they're supposed to be dead or something, they'll use like a model, like a model with them or something, but it's actually like a mannequin or something.
Yeah.
But back then they didn't do that, so they had to work that much harder. And go ahead, girl.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So.
I'm trying to think. Is there anything you want to add for the Phoenix arc?
Ooh. It's not really technically on the Phoenix, but I do want to point it out because we were talking about like the tension between David and Roger. And I think a lot of that had to do with, I think Roger, to a point, wanted him to be Burke's kid, obviously, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that is why they hated each other so much. Like Roger was like, he's not mine, he's not mine.
Yeah.
But like you explained, I truly believe that he is a Collins.
Yeah.
He's not Burke Devlin's, but
Yeah.
I think that's where that all started, is that he just refused to believe David was his.
But in return, at the end of this, when it was all over and Vicky pulling David back at the last second before the shack went up in flames,
Yeah.
that's when their relationship, Roger and David's relationship, began to take a positive turn.
It did.
And not only Roger and David, but Carolyn and David, because Carolyn's been in charge all this time.
Yeah.
And trying to do what her mother would do, and she knows that her mother would say, no, he can't go to Laura's tonight because it's not safe and he needs to stay here. And of course, David, being the rebellious child that he is,
always ran out
anyway,
the house,
you know. Yeah. And so I think that in addition to getting our first supernatural character and her pulling it off so well and opening up the door to bring on more supernatural and more mythical creatures, we get a positive turnaround and a good stepping stone in the family's relationship.
Yeah.
And in David too, I think. So
yeah.
So I mean, she did just more than bring on the first supernatural character. This was a step in a positive direction to build more solidity between the family, you know?
Yeah.
So that the Collinses can go on being Collinses and sticking up for each other.
Right.
So, but
yeah, there was a lot of tension prior to Laura, and we saw a lot of that throughout the episodes.
Yeah.
This is sort of the arc where they're closing together.
Right.
But what really sort of to test it even further is the arrival of Jason McGuire.
oh yes.
Oh my God.
I want to bring you back next week, and are you free?
What's the date next week?
Whatever you, Friday, Sunday, whatever you like.
I have an engagement on Saturday, but Friday or Sunday would.
Friday.
Friday. Is 10:30 good, ladies?
Yes.
Fine with us.
Yes.
I have one final question before I let you go.
Okay.
Today, who, if Dark Shadows got picked up, who would you cast as the Phoenix?
I knew this question was coming. No,
I apologize in advance.
Wow.
don't apologize for anything. It's a good question.
Oh man. Why wasn't I thinking about this? I mean, I have thought about it, but you know, you're trying to build your perfect cast, and some roles have been impossible for me to. And I'll admit it, that's been one of them. That's been a really hard one for me to cast.
Who's the girl who plays? I'm sorry, this isn't my show because I don't watch it very often. But the one who plays the mother of the dragons on Game of Thrones.
Oh, Khaleesi, Emilia Clarke.
I kind of like her for that role. I don't. At first guess, that's what I would say.
I kind of would like somebody a little middle aged. You know, like
you're right.
Like in their
you're right. She is kind of young.
40s maybe. If that's middle aged, I don't mean to offend. Sorry.
We're almost there.
I know we're pushing it, but
we're almost there.
But like, I don't know why. Maybe because she was in the movie Dark Shadows, but I think Michelle Pfeiffer could do a good job.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think
good
she
choice.
could. I really think she could.
And she deserves a second chance at Dark Shadows. I mean, come on.
I mean, I liked the way she played Elizabeth.
Yeah,
I do. I liked what they were trying to do with her.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
I would say Michelle Pfeiffer at this moment.
Well, that was a
for
better
the Phoenix.
choice than mine.
Yeah, I like her.
Who would you cast?
I'm going to go someone a little younger, but someone who's close to 30.
Oh, okay.
And that is Andy Matichek from Halloween 2018.
Oh,
Okay.
Kills and Halloween Ends.
Okay.
She's not a blonde, but she's a redhead. So.
Okay. That works a little better for the Phoenix.
I mean, you don't have to be blonde.
No.
And red hair would work better.
Well, they did this with X-Men as well, where it was a redhead. So I'm sort of using the X-Men catalyst. I apologize, but that's
Yeah.
to me, like when I saw, like I love Dana Malay as the Phoenix, but then when you see the X-Men cartoon and you see Jean Grey, it's like holy shit.
Certainly. Yeah.
All right, so for Friday, I have a great discussion for you both, and it is actually 1795. I've been wanting to do 1795 with you both, so that is going to be our discussion for Friday.
Perfect.
And that'll be a lot of fun. Link to Christine and Cara's channel is going to be in the description box. Go check out Between the Shadows, a Dark Shadows podcast. Go follow them on Twitter at Lady Mongoose, at I Don't Cara. Go follow them on Twitter. They're on Facebook as well. They have a Facebook page. Go check them out. Ladies, it is always a blast.
Yes, thank you so much, Jewel.
Thank you.
New episodes are coming, we promise.
I'll be tuning in.
Yes.
We're coming.
We're coming.
You ladies have a good night.
You too, Jewel.
Bye, Jewel.
Bye.
Bye.